Welcome to On Roads Less Travelled Off-Road Adventures. This video will show you the site where an abduction and murder took place in the Australian outback last century. We will tour the old station, see some vintage cars and learn a little history along the way. And some quirky Australianisms to look at as we drive by. And here's the shoe tree. Liberally covered in shoes of all varieties. Anyone missing a bra? Because here it might be on the bra tree. And even an old pair of Rivers jocks. There was a pink piano, but this is all that's left of it. Well, and this. We're back on the road again with a fair drive ahead of us before we find a camp spot for the night. And here we are camped on the banks of the Darling River. After a quick pack up, we're on the road again, planning to arrive sometime after mid-afternoon. Next day, we head into the station and drive cross-country to the homestead. We're out here on this station on the banks of the Darling River, and in a minute Greg's going to tell you the story of this old homestead where a kidnapping occurred and possibly even a murder.
We're on an old sheep station that my grandmother grew up on. She was here in the 1910s, 1920s. I know she left the area in about 1923. It was like a mini town here. You had shops, you had like the paddle steamers used to pull up on the riverbank, which we'll get a bit of footage of where that used to happen. I won't reveal the location of it, out of respect to the landowner, because he does get a few people snooping around.
Yeah, looters coming in.
But this was a magnificent building, had a ballroom, there was tennis courts, everything. Schoolhouse, which my grandmother, which you can't see from here, but
Just see the side of the schoolhouse there. We'll go there in a minute. This is the old schoolhouse where they taught the station kids and probably children from around the area as well.
just a little bit of a backstory to this property. There was a believed murder here, which the young girl's body was never found. They have been looking in recent years. There was a kidnapping. I believe the young girl was held in this particular room here, the police did come and catch the bloke, but once again I won't mention his name or the name of the victim, just out of respect.
So it was a fairly substantial house in its time. Excuse the back noise walking over the tin. Quite a large house. Just got to watch where I'm going and make sure I don't stand on any old nails. With river frontage. And of course the old date palms. This house would have been spectacular in its day, back in the 1800s. Sadly, a fire in the 1980s diminished it to its current state. The old blacksmith's workshops on the right and the mechanics workshops on the left. There are some old cattle yards or stock yards. There's the old homestead in the distance, and over here is a stash of old cars. So here are the old cars. Look at this old beauty. And bits of cars. This was an old farm ute at some stage. Fancy driving down the road in that thing. You'd be driving in style. Another old beauty just rusting away. This would have been somebody's pride and joy back in the day. What a beauty. Greg's just having a look at some of the old vehicles to try and identify them for us. Look at this old wheel. No rubber tyres, just wood and steel. Hard old days they were.
I've been trying to figure out what some of these cars are. Unfortunately, most of the plates have been taken off them, but I know that's a Ford Prefect. I remember them actually being on the road. We've got a Chev Master sedan to the right of that. Don't know what year. Not sure what this one is. I don't think it's a Pommy car because it's got a 6-cylinder. Most of their small cars had 4 cylinders in the early days.
So if you know, drop us a comment and let us know what they are. I'm sure there's some car enthusiasts out there that would look at that and say, God, I know what that is. Well, drop us a comment. I'm sure this mattress frame would have been belonging to one of the kids there, maybe even one that's in the graveyard. And here's the old steam engine. It says Marshall Sons and Proprietary Limited, Gainsborough, England. So this would have been shipped out here over the seas and then boated up the Darling. And here's one that's a bit more modern. And just to remind us to look out for snakes, there's the remains of one. There's also like an old bottle midden here as well. Just a lot of detritus from bygone years. Harsh landscape to live in. Greg's found an old plate. Trying to read the details on it.
It's a Chev. Just trying to find what year it might be. Doesn't give me the year. It's a ute, I know that. It says a full door utility. That's the front clip for it, so if you walk around there, Anne.
You know what sort of vehicle this was? Let's see, what's it say? Yeah, Chevrolet. But that's about all we know. Travelling in style.
It's a Ford. I reckon it's been converted into a ute. I reckon that was part of the tray. Like that old Ford over there. That's got a flathead V8 in it. Obviously it was a sedan at one point, and then they've cut the back off it and done a bit of panel beating, turned it into a ute.
Of course, it would have been important to use every drop of water, so they've planted a date palm underneath where the old tank would have stood. This one, of course, is a more modern one. They're just looking for the old mooring point where the old paddle steamers would come to port to offload goods. There. This was probably the old pontoon that would rise and fall with the water levels. Bear in mind, back in those days, the Darling would have been a lot more full of water, no weirs and all the things that we do in the modern day for the water coming out, irrigation liquid coming out. And here is part of the old winch for hauling it up. Look at that. Innovative use of wood. And these are possibly bollards to tie boats up to during high water. I've been trying to have a guess as to what this might have been. Maybe an old wheelhouse or temporary store of some sort. And this may well have been part of the winching cable tied around a tree, and an old hook now deeply embedded as the years have gone by. And a gnarly old red gum. Probably just a youngster back in the 1800s. These would have been the old horse yards, no doubt. And look at this. What an old beauty. An old Chevy Blitz. She would have been a rugged old thing in her time, bouncing across the paddocks. Let's see if we can get a look in the cabin. Just your basic layout, isn't it? Old instrument panel, a couple of flip switches, seat for the passenger, and quite an impressive tray of its time. Now please, if anyone does know where this place is, please don't put it into comments, because the station owners have had a lot of difficulty with looters and people coming on their land and doing damage, leaving gates open, etc. So please respect their privacy. Station owner said that this is the old camp kitchen. Massive big thing, pulled by presumably bullock, oxen, and it used to travel, bump across all the dusty, dirty old roads, and then they could cook food wherever they were. And look at the length of distance between those two old wheels. She would have been a rough old ride. This might have been the labourers' quarters. This may have been the old laundry. See, it's got a laundry trough, but maybe used as a bathroom as well. Beautiful old door. So this is just next door to the place with the basin. So this would have been the old showers for the workers. And here's the old boiler, the water heater, so that they didn't have to have cold showers. And here's a more modern version.
Oh, they're both shearers' quarters.
Shearers' quarters. Notice the flywire encasing it, because the flies out here are just murder. And some more quarters for stockmen or shearers or some such. And here's a look inside the shearers and stockmen's quarters. Just your basic setup, a couple of beds, that's all you need. A couple of old fridges. The old kitchen where they would have all sat, have a feast. And the old kitchen. Look at that for an old beauty. Hauled in from Adelaide by the looks. She would have been roaring in her time. Some old benches and a bit of a more modern stove for more recent times. And this in its time would have been the old storeroom for food. That would have been for perishable goods, like an old meat safe. What a beauty. Look at that. So 2 ovens. Many a loaf of bread's been baked in there, I have no doubt. And again, some more accommodation, maybe for the head cook or head stockman. Don't know. This would have been the old meat safe for their home killed beef and lamb. Hang it in there till it's right to go. No doubt in its early years, this grand old house would have had servants bustling around. Old schoolroom. And ladies dressed in their grandest finery, dancing and laughing as they enjoyed the company of visitors. Dr. Ludwig Becker, diarist to Burke and Will's expedition, wrote of visiting stations like this on his travels northwards. However, as time passed, so did the glory days for this old homestead, until an evil old man working as caretaker whilst living here committed a heinous act. This would have been the main entrance. The abduction and murder took place almost half a century ago, when a lady of the night was drugged, kidnapped and driven here. And well, we can guess what that was. She was then held hostage, tied to a fireplace for some time, and it's unknown what happened to her during that time. And this might have been an old kitchen. It is believed that her body was then transported a long distance away and buried in remote scrubland, never to be found. Whole mechanic workshop, complete with a pit, working on the cars. And this old beauty, what's it say? Few old car batteries. Maybe some old workers' quarters, another lot of workers' quarters. After an investigation spanning many years and some false starts, the man was convicted after incriminating photographs were discovered. He is now serving a life sentence and has been described as pure evil. We're following this track down to where the old township was. Is that right, Greg?
Well, they had sort of like a township. There was shops here.
We're just trying to remember exactly where we saw it when the station owner brought us down here. So here we have one of their rubbish dumps with lots of great old bottles. Old medicine bottle there. There'd be some real beauties if you dug down in here, with even whole bottles. Some old crockery. We guess that might have been an old midden or similar, and so we kept on looking for the old town. Whilst we did find remnants of old buildings and machinery, we couldn't find the old town site. Everyone loves a bit of target practice. Well, back when I was a child anyway. These days you're not allowed to have guns. But as a kid it was great fun. Go out and shoot off a few rounds. This is normally a dry lake, but this year she's nice and full. see the pelicans there, just loving it. Not sure if it's going to show up in the footage, but all the way along there is just hundreds and hundreds of pelicans. See that white? Hundreds of pelicans. We had hoped to drive to the other station to share the history and story of Greg's great-grandparents. However, the road is under the lake, so perhaps another time. We stopped in at the station cemetery to have a look. Most of the oldest stations have their own cemetery where the owners, workers and children are buried. Unlike some, this one is cared for but has most recently been inaccessible due to flooding in the area. There's graves here dating from early to mid 1800s through to mid 1900s. Dear little child died at 7 years of age in 1886. With wet weather imminent, we continue on. We head for Lake Tyrrell, which I've always wanted to see. We're at Lake Tyrrell, which is a salt lake. As you can see, look at that, as far as you can see it's just salt. Goes all the way back around there. Flies are crazy bad though. That white stuff is just salt crystal. Just like salt on the table, but thick. Thank you for watching On Roads Less Travelled Off-Road Adventures. Please remember to subscribe, like and share, or to drop us a comment. We love to travel the outback, sand dunes, high country, sandy beaches and much, much more. Please check out our other videos.